This is Bold Steps with Mark Jobe. I'm Wayne Shepherd, and today we have a very special program for you as we near Christmas. Dr. Gregg Quiggle is with us today, an author, historian. He's going to discuss one of the most remarkable ministries in Chicago's history. As we reflect, it helps us trace the foundation that birthed Moody Radio back in 1926 and carries it to a 100-year milestone in 2026. Mark, today we're going to look back at what built that vision of the ministry legacy and continues to impact lives around the world.
D.L. Moody. He's known around the world as a great evangelist and founder, of course, of this place called Moody Bible Institute. But you know, Wayne, what a lot of people don't know is the incredible story of how he fed thousands of hungry people while sharing the gospel and was involved in some really tough neighborhoods in Chicago, a ministry of compassion and truth that really revolutionized Chicago. And today we're going to talk about that.
Right. We're going to have a very special Christmas time edition of Bold Steps now with Dr. Gregg Quiggle. Stay tuned for Bold Steps TV. And welcome to Bold Steps TV with Mark Jobe. Mark is the senior pastor of New Life Community Church in Chicago and, of course, president of Moody Bible Institute. I'm Wayne Shepherd. Mark, we're so pleased to welcome a special guest to the program today, our friend Dr. Gregg Quiggle. He's written a remarkable book. I read this, and I love it. It's called Bread and Bibles, Moody's Mission to Feed Bodies and Souls. And Gregg, welcome to Bold Steps.
Thanks for having me. Very glad to be here.
You know, Gregg has spent a lot of time studying the life of D.L. Moody. When I think of people that are experts on D.L. Moody, Gregg Quiggle, Dr. Gregg Quiggle comes right to mind. And, you know, Gregg, the history of Moody is one of those stories that it's compelling. It's got all the marks of just this powerful son of an alcoholic, ends up in virtual poverty. God gets a hold of his life, and he really changes the known world. But our listeners may not be as familiar with the story. Can you paint a picture a bit of what Chicago was like when young D.L. Moody came to this place?
Yes, it was a remarkable place. In fact, the reason that Moody came to Chicago was because it was the place to be. It was the hot place to be. The story of Chicago is remarkable. It's really an American story. You go back about 1837, Chicago's roughly 17 buildings. By 1900, Chicago is 1.9 million people. It's the fifth largest city in the world. And in the middle of that, you had the Chicago fire. 25% of the place burns down. So it's stunning the speed with which Chicago expands and the amount of problems. Just think about things like how do you take care of waste? How do you find housing? All the industrial byproducts. At one point, for example, there was about 400 million board foot of lumber stored on the lakefront. All those white pine forests in Chicago
In Wisconsin. Yeah.
They just hacked them all down, float them down the lake. Lake Michigan got so polluted, they get their drinking water from there. At one point, they tunneled out about a mile under the lake to try to fix it. It was still polluted.
You can still see the crib out there today.
You can still see the crib. So here's what they did. They redug the Chicago River. Rivers are supposed to flow into lakes.
Right.
Chicago River flows out. Here's what we'll do. We'll send all our garbage down river.
Wasn't real popular downriver, but we understand.
It was not. And epidemics in terms of cholera, typhoid, just because of all of this stuff, overcrowding, ethnic strife. Poles didn't like Italians, didn't like Jews, so you can't even begin to imagine what the place was like.
You know, Gregg, I thought of you recently. I'm reading a secular book about the Chicago fire, and I'm on chapter 21. No mention of D.L. Moody at this point. He had to be influential at that time of the fire.
He was. the most influential thing he had done to that point were actually two things. Number one is the Sunday school. The Sunday school was remarkable. He was a new convert. He was really burdened for kids. And so he targeted poor kids. And he did what he thought was the right thing to do. He invited them to church. Well, these were street urchin kids. They had no idea how to behave in a church. And after a couple Sundays of this,
They're pictured on the cover of your book, as a matter of fact.
They are.
Aren't they?
And
Yeah.
all you have to do is look at the picture and say, I wonder how that's going to work in a middle-class church. It ain't, to quote Dwight Moody. It ain't. And so they say, well, we're not sure this is a good idea, Dwight. He said, fine, I'll go where they are. So he went into the neighborhoods, rented saloons, clean them out, and they would meet in the saloons on Sunday. The thing took off. By 1865, he has over 1,000 kids at this. It's so famous that Abraham Lincoln stops there on his way to his inaugural.
How about that?
1860. And, so the Sunday school's one thing. The other thing he's involved in is the YMCA. And the YMCA is one of the most significant places for physical help for poor people. Two things. He's feeding people, providing coal, etc., for them for the winter. And second, it was a place where young men from the country could come get education. Businessmen would tell them how to live, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, Mark, we're deep already into Gregg's book here because it's titled Bread and Bibles, D.L. Moody's Evangelism and Social Action, kind of a aspect of his ministry forgotten about.
Yeah, we typically think of D.L. Moody in these large evangelistic crusades, boldly calling people to the what was it called? The repentant bench? Or
Yes. Anxious bench.
The anxious bench. So he's known as this fiery evangelist, but people don't know as much about his heart for the poor, his willingness to roll up his sleeves and get involved in really addressing some of these issues. Your book is called Bread and Bibles. I love the title. Unpack that for us a little bit.
Yeah, I actually was doing a seminar at a university, a PhD seminar on the social gospel. And I asked if I could write on Dwight Moody. And I was reading secondary literature, and secondary literature all said, well, Dwight Moody was the guy who turned evangelicals away from social action because he did just evangelism. And they quote him where he said, I used to go to the poor sinner with a bread in one hand and a Bible in the other, and I would always give him the bread first. And I learned, no, I need to give him the Bible first. Well, that quote is way out of context, way out of context. Yeah. He's talking about Matthew 6:33, and he's speaking to a group of evangelists. So I actually wrote a paper. It was a Roman Catholic university, actually, and I wrote this paper, and the professor was reading it, and he comes back to me and he said, Gregg, who's been running all these rescue missions all these years? What's the name of the place you work again? And I went, he said, you better go back and do some more reading. And I went back and I found, wow, he was doing both of these. What you do is more important than what you say in this case. One sentence, and historians have run a truck through that one sentence. I started to look and see what the guy actually did. Rescue missions, orphanages, feeding the poor. Moody never, ever, ever divorced the two. Now, he had a priority, but he never divorced them.
Yeah. I love that. I love the fact that he understood, and partly, Gregg, wouldn't you think that part of it was his upbringing?
Absolutely.
He was not a stranger to this. And if I remember his story, it was after the death of his father that one of the local pastors actually started helping them out with some food and so forth. And that really seemed to have opened Moody in a positive way towards the gospel.
That was the family's introduction to the church. It was a young Unitarian minister of all things, a recent Harvard grad. And he heard about the family situation, and he showed up practically and he took this young man and the whole family under his wing and helped provide for them. Moody never forgot that young man.
Yeah.
And Moody learned that the gospel has practical implications as well as eternal implications.
So it seems to be down in history that, and you would know this a little bit better than I do, but that there was a reaction against a Christianity that seemed to just do social stuff but leave out the discipleship and the gospel. And it was almost like there was a big divorce. Like if you did that stuff, you must be liberal, and but the true churches just preach the word. Unfortunate, because the church over the history of it's been the ones that started hospitals and orphanages and center city missions and
Western civilization has prospered because of Christianity.
exactly. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, what happened is there's a movement called the social gospel movement. And most of those people actually come out of evangelical backgrounds. But what they did is they hooked their doctrine to what's called liberal biblical scholarship. So what you have is social concern got linked with liberal biblical scholarship in people's mind. So it became a package thing. Oh, social concern equals liberal reading of the Bible. And a guy like Moody was involved with the poor because he read the Bible and because he read it literally in a very conservative manner. And unfortunately, that divide took place. And there weren't enough people that were able to articulate a conservative social vision grounded in a conservative reading of the Bible to make that a powerful force among conservative churches. Now, in fairness, as my professor pointed out, who's been running rescue missions all these years?
Yeah.
They've been doing this stuff.
Yeah.
That just hasn't been talked about enough.
Well, we've learned so much already. D.L. Moody really was a bridge between evangelism and social action and a model for us today. That's what Gregg's book is all about, Bread and Bibles. And stay tuned because we're going to offer this book to our listeners, Mark. That's coming up later in the program today. Our guest is Dr. Gregg Quiggle. And it's very special this Christmas season that we have this conversation, the perfect time to rediscover this story. Stay with us.
Hey, well, some of you may be asking yourself, what is Moody? You have seen the story of Dwight Lyman Moody, D.L. Moody as we call him, this young 17-year-old that was converted, alcoholic father, left orphan, grew up in poverty, but was radically converted and had a passion to reach a generation for Jesus. But he left a legacy as well, not just tens of thousands of people that came to Jesus, but he also started what we call the Moody Bible Institute in the heart of Chicago. He started what's called Moody Church now. After he passed away, it was named that. And he started, some people called it the Chicago Bible Institute or the Chicago Evangelization Society, that is now the Moody Bible Institute. And if you're not familiar with what we are, what this ministry is, this is in the heart of Chicago. D.L. Moody knelt by Chicago and LaSalle right downtown and said, Lord, give us this land. And so for almost 140 years, we have been training students here in this spot, and it's grown over the years. So we are a fully accredited college, undergrad school, and seminary. We have about 2,400 students that study terminal degrees online here. We also train students internationally with Moody School of the Bible. We have about 2,500 currently studying overseas. We have a seminary in Plymouth, Michigan as well that's a part of Moody. We have an aviation school in Spokane, Washington that we've had for about 85 years, where we train specifically pilots that are going to do missionary work. We call them missionary pilots. It's an amazing place. We have 16 airplanes and about 140 students right now studying basically to be jungle pilots, transporting Bibles and missionaries. Apart from the school, though, we also have Moody Publishers, or Moody Publishing, which we have about 60 books a year that we publish, close to 3 million books a year that we sell, titles as big as Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages, the Moody Bible Commentary, and just really good, solid books that are theologically grounded. A.W. Tozer's collection is also, we carry that. And apart from that, we also have Moody Radio, or Moody Global Media. And literally millions of people around the world listen to content that we produce, preachers, teachers, here in the U.S., but also in places like Africa, via live streaming. Literally tens of millions of people have access to programming through Moody Radio, and some of you have been listening for a long time. So when you say, what is Moody Bible Institute, or what is Moody? This is the legacy of a man who had no more than a 6th grade education, but was touched by God with a passion, converted, and had a passion for souls. We continue with that passion to reach as many people as we can and equip people to live on mission for Jesus Christ. So we have students that really come from all over the world to the Chicago campus, international students from all over the U.S. with one thing in common. They want to be trained to live on mission for Jesus, regardless of what their degree is in. And so if this has sparked an interest and you're interested in studying at Moody Bible Institute, whether online or aviation or on our campus, I would encourage you to check out moody.edu. That's moody.edu.
Well, we're continuing our special Christmas time program with Dr. Gregg Quiggle, author of Bread and Bibles, Moody's Mission to Feed Bodies and Souls. I'm Wayne Shepherd here with Mark Jobe and our special guest.
Yeah, and Gregg is an expert on the life of D.L. Moody. Gregg, when we think of D.L. Moody, we picture him maybe in the later years of his life with that big, thick beard and that husky frame, preaching to tens of thousands of people. But he didn't start out that way. In his 20s, he came to Chicago. Give us a little picture into who D.L. Moody was when he started out here in Chicago.
He is very rambunctious. We would today say he was ADHD, to put it mildly. He is poorly educated. In the book, I have multiple examples of his writing. Punctuation is optional. Spelling is creative.
So he would have been good at social media then.
He would have liked emojis. They would have allowed him to not have to spell anything. He's at one point he writes to his brother, and he's trying to write the psalmist says, and he spells psalmist S-A-I-M-I-S-T, and he spells says S-A-I-S. So very aggressive, frenetic, poorly educated, very focused. He also has a temper, which he will fight with his entire life. One of the stories is, even as an older man, there's a meeting he's running. It's 2 meetings, evangelistic meetings, and between meetings, somebody says something to him he doesn't like, and he pushed the guy down the stairs. Got so angry at him. So, yeah, he's a human.
Yeah.
And Probably the best thing that happened to him is he met a young woman who was very cultured and circumspect, helped him with his education, helped him think things through, kind of put some reins on this stuff. Emma was a wonderful helpmeet for him.
Wives are like that, aren't they, Mark?
They are. So that's who he was. He was rambunctious, go get 'em, all fire, not a whole lot of wisdom early on, but very, very, very focused.
And as the story of Moody goes, and by the way, I love it because it should be an encouragement to those of you that are listening that God can use anybody in the rough. And that's part of the legacy of the story of Moody, is that here's an uneducated guy, come from poverty, not a lot of Christian background, has a temper, but yet God uses him in a powerful way.
He was the right man at the right time.
Yes.
He was. And so tell us a little bit about his struggle between sort of evangelism and just compassion, helping the needy. You've entitled this book Bread and Bibles, and he was wrestling between both of them. He lived in both of those worlds. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, what's interesting about it is there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of tension in Moody's own mind about this. It was a seamless garment.
Yeah.
Because he read the Bible.
Yeah.
You know, he read the Bible and he took it seriously, which is kind of a novel thing when you think about it. We read it and find ways to get around what it says. But, you know, to him, Jesus said, feed the poor and tell them about me.
Yeah.
And so he did. And he prioritized. But that's how Moody understood it. It was really kind of a simple sort of thing.
And Gregg, as we look around the landscape sometimes of the more current church, sometimes we'll see churches that have an emphasis on helping people with the feeding and so forth, but oftentimes will sort of let go of the gospel-centered focus and it becomes all about social action and compassion. And then other churches that seem to be very, very focused on the Word of God and evangelism, but seem to barely touch the compassion areas. Why do you think that sort of divide occurs?
Well, I think some of that's that historical problem that, well, that's what liberals do for conservatives. The other problem is too often we make this political. And we can fight about the best way to help the poor, but we should never fight about whether or not we should help them. And when you waste all your energy on arguing about method rather than actually doing it, that's not honoring to God. Just do it. But if you're going to spend all your time arguing about the politics of this, that's the kind of thing Moody had no time for. Now Moody had a political point of view, but he was too busy actually doing stuff to spend all his time arguing about the politics of it. He would simply say, "What's wrong with you? Just feed these people, for heaven's sakes. Just roll up your sleeves and get it done." The other thing I think that's really important, and I used to tell students this when I was teaching at Moody, I'm paraphrasing. Moody would say, find the thing that needs to be done, and here's the key phrase, that nobody else is doing, and do that. Moody never did copycat, and Moody trusted God to use other people who were already doing it. So he would look around and say, listen, these people are already doing that ministry. Why wouldn't I trust God to continue to use them to do that? Let me find what isn't being done. Let me find the hole. Why did Bible colleges start? They started because Moody found a hole. There was a hole between seminaries and Christian colleges. And he said, I think there's something we could do here There's an area here that we can do something new and unique. Let's do this instead of saying we do another seminary or I'm going to do another. Let's do a new thing that nobody else is doing.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, I think that was the genius of Moody.
Mark and Greg, as I think about that, I think about although radio came far after D.L. Moody's death, radio from Moody Bible Institute was doing something nobody else was doing, right?
Exactly.
And here we are 100 years later, Moody
Flight
Radio.
school,
Yeah.
same deal.
Right.
That was the DNA of the institution. Find the thing that needs to be done that nobody else is doing and do that.
Yeah.
Trust God to use the things that are already in place.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust God to do that. Funny story. I happened to go to a church with Phil Ryken, who's the president of Wheaton College, and we team taught a Sunday school class. And I was talking to Phil. I said, "You may not know this, but the president of Wheaton College went on a fundraising tour to raise money to help start Moody Bible Institute."
Really?
Yes.
I'll have to remind him of that
I
next
see
time
the
see
wheels
him.
spinning with Mark's head right now, yeah.
And that's exactly the model. Hey, we need this. They're not competing with us. They're going to do something that we are not going to try to do. They can do that. So we're going to help them do that.
I love it. And Greg, not to get sidetracked here, but it brings to mind something that you've been involved in, Moody School of the Bible, which is in Ghana, solar devices.
Yes.
And you know that this year there'll be 1,000 people that
Yes.
are trained, and we're training another 1,000 people in Central Asia. And I was asking those that were working on it, hey, is anybody else doing that? And they said, in the space of colleges and accredited institutions, no. And I thought, yes, D.L. Moody would love this. Tell me, Greg, as you look at the landscape today of churches and Christianity, what is it that you think we can learn from the heart and posture of D.L. Moody today?
Well, I think, number one, take the Bible seriously and just do what it says. And so we need to stop putting things at odds that the Bible doesn't. So the Bible nowhere says make a choice between evangelism and feeding the poor. It doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Why are we doing it? Number one. Number two, we need to figure out ways to trust each other and work together rather than competing with each other. Evangelicals are notorious, in my opinion, for just copycat. We don't need another one of those. We need one of these. Nobody's doing that. Let's do that. So I think those are the main things. We need people that can look around and say, what is the area we're not doing? Let's do that. Let's trust God to use each other. And let's take the Bible seriously. Let's not put those things in opposition that the text doesn't. I would say those are the two big takeaways as I look at Mr. Moody.
What a great conversation today with Dr. Gregg Quiggle. And I hope you will read this book, Bread and Bibles. We'll talk more about the book in a moment. But so much here for our day as we've just been discussing. Mark and Greg, I wonder, though, if we might not close our conversation in prayer. And let's just thank the Lord for somebody who lived so long ago who still, by example, teaches us today, and that's D.L. Moody.
You know, Wayne, I brought my 5-year-old grandson to Moody Bible Institute, and he walked past the museum and he saw that sort of likeness of, and he said, "Who's that?" And my wife was trying to explain D.L. Moody to a 5-year-old. And I believe that there are D.L. Moody's out there listening to me. Mm-hmm. And you may look at your background and say, I don't think God could ever use me. I don't have the right education. I can't speak properly. You look at all the negatives of how you were raised, maybe a family full of addiction. Maybe you have your own stories. Maybe you've struggled with anger or addiction. But I hope you look at the story of Moody and say, God can use someone who chooses to say, I'm broken and I may not have a lot, but I want to be fully surrendered to Him. And that was really the prayer of Moody. And so, Father, I pray for that man, that woman right now that seems unqualified. They look at their story and they seem like they would be unlikely to be used by you. But I pray, Lord Jesus, that you would stir their heart right now, that they would know that it's not them, it's you in them. I pray, God, that you would start raising a new generation that's just passionate about the gospel of Jesus Christ and evangelism, that believes your word, but also has a heart of compassion to the needy, the broken. And Father, I pray that you would begin to stir up D.L. Moody's in this generation to make a difference for the glory of King Jesus. And so we pray that right now, Father. Stir up hearts that have listened to this, and we ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Gregg Quiggle, thank you. Corporately, personally, thank you for writing this book. We appreciate it so much.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Wayne Shepherd. On behalf of Mark Jobe and our guest and everyone here at Bold Steps, we wish you a very Merry Christmas. May you experience the joy of knowing Christ, and may you be inspired to share His love, both with bread and Bibles, to those around you. We'll see you next time on Bold Steps with Mark Jobe. Bold Steps is a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute.